Hey guys, welcome back to the Matt Newton Football Show. I'm your host, Matt, and we're here to talk about Mike McDaniel's personnel package problem.
Well,
And it's not as bad as it sounds. I mean, every now and again, Mike McDaniel will call a play where he doesn't optimally have his best players on the field. And sometimes that can hurt the offense because if the offense doesn't have players on the field that can strike fear in the defense, then sometimes it doesn't always yield the best results. I mean, that just makes sense. The better players you have on the field, the better results you'll have. Now, you can't always have your best players available play in and play out. I mean, guys get hurt. Sometimes guys need a breather. So, you have to be able to call plays with the guys you have available. I mean, that just makes sense. But there are times when Mike McDaniel can do a better job of making sure his guys are rotated properly so that he's always going to have a threat on the field at the same time. But to have a personnel grouping where none of his explosive players are on the field, that's just detrimental to the offense. It kind of hinders the quarterback, limits his options, and all in all, it's kind of like a wasted play at times. So let's take a look at one of those plays I was referring to and see what the Dolphins did. So this first clip I want to take a look at is a clip from the Buffalo versus Miami game. This is the second game the Dolphins played against the Bills in 2023. And this is the game where the Dolphins ended up throwing a pick late in the game, which ended up sealing the win for the Buffalo Bills. When you look at the personnel package group, you'll have a better understanding of what I'm talking about as it relates to the defense. Over here at the top of the screen on the right side, you have Cedric Wilson lined up tight, right by the numbers. Then you have Jeff Wilson Jr. lined up in the backfield. You have Durham Smythe lined up in the slot. Then behind him, you have Braxton Berrios kind of lined up in a bunch kind of formation. And then you have Chase Claypool lined up on the outside to the far left in a tight bunch formation. The problem I have with this personnel grouping is that you want to know who is really the biggest threat that the defense have to concern themselves about. You don't really have any of your speed guys on the field. There's no Jaylen Waddle, there's no Tyreek Hill. So the guys who are home run hitters, guys who can score from anywhere on the field, none of those guys are on the field in this play. So the Dolphins really have to create a scheme in order to get these guys open, whether it's through a rub route, through a pick, or whether it's through some kind of combination of routes in order to get someone free for Tua to throw the ball to. So let's take a look at the play from the beginning. And let's just see how, before we get into the Buffalo Bills defensive formation, let's look at the Dolphins offensive formation to see what they're trying to get accomplished. Now, normally, the Braxton Berrios guy here who goes into motion, that's usually Tyreek Hill or maybe even Jaylen Waddle, right? They kind of line up tight along the line of scrimmage and they have that speed motion that they normally do. And that's really to create the defense to kind of back off away from the line of scrimmage. But as you can see here, when Braxton Berrios goes in motion, the defense doesn't really shift. They don't really move because they're not really concerned with any of the speed on the field for the Dolphins. Now, it turns out that the Bills are playing a cover 2-man under. So all of the defensive backs that are playing man coverage, they're all trying to take away the underneath routes from the receiver. And the two safeties are going to basically play deep in order to help any receivers that may be coming in their areas and then create a double team. The problem for the Dolphins is that A, there's no spacing, B, there's no threat on the field, and C, is just a poor decision by Tua. So let's look at the play again from the beginning. Now, Braxton Berrios goes into motion here, and when he goes into motion, immediately he gets picked up on the slot by this defender here on the outside, and he's pretty much blanketed and covered. And if you look at the other receivers, Jeff Wilson is being covered down here, being covered up at the top here. Then you have Cedric Wilson, who's coming in here on the in-breaking route, but he's well covered. You have Durham Smythe, he's well covered. And now you have Chase Claypool, who's the primary receiver on this particular route. And if we go back again and look at it from the beginning, the defensive back right here switches. He takes the outside responsibility, which happens to be Braxton Berrios. This would normally be Tyreek Hill. And then you have Chase Claypool here working the slot. And the reason why he's lined up tight is to take advantage of all this space here on the field. So as the play rolls along, he is supposed to flatten out this route and get away from the defender by snapping off his route, getting to the outside. And Tua is supposed to throw the ball with this anticipation. It's supposed to be in the air already. By the time Chase Claypool makes his break, the ball is in the air. Tua, actually, he does a few things wrong on this play. First of all, he stares the receiver down. If you look closely at Tua's head on this play, he's looking to the left the entire way. And even though his eyes might be shifted here towards Durham Smythe, the fact of the matter is his head is pointed towards Chase Claypool. So this safety doesn't really have any responsibilities but to double team anyone who comes in his area. As it turns out, there's only one player that's coming into his area. That is Chase Claypool. In addition to that, Tua, he stares down the receiver the whole time. He's looking at the receiver. The safety's looking at him. And they're basically telegraphing the pass to Chase Claypool, which is a big mistake. Then Tua throws the ball late before the receiver really got an opportunity to snap off his route from the defensive back. And then the safety is basically watching Tua the whole way and looking at Tua stare on the receiver. And it's very easy for him to jump on the ball and reach for this interception. So it's really a bad play design. It's a bad personnel grouping and then a bad decision by the quarterback at the most critical juncture of the season. This is a game that if the Dolphins win this game, they can they will host a playoff game in the Super Wildcard weekend in Miami. But because of this play, and I'm not saying that this play is the only reason why the Dolphins lost. It's not. The Dolphins could have won the game on many different plays that took place during the game. But all I'm trying to say is that at the critical juncture of the game where you needed to have a big play, the guys on the field just weren't the best candidates on the field in order to make a play at this particular point in time of the game. So if we look at the play again, one more time, Tua drops back after he receives the snap. He takes 3 steps. He looks at his receiver. He stares him down and he fires the ball into double coverage. And I mean, there's no one else in the area for the safety to be responsible for. So it's an easy pick for him. Probably the easiest pick in his life. Now, it would have been different if the route combination was different, where instead of Durham Smythe crossing in front of the quarterback, instead, if you ran up the seam here to at least occupy the safety, and then Chase Claypool can come in this area and then snap off his route, then maybe you put this safety in conflict. If there's a tight end screaming up the seam and the safety has to wonder, who do I double team? Do I double team the tight end coming up the seam, or do I double team the outside wide receiver? Maybe he has something to think about. But because he's only responsible for the one receiver that Tua happens to be staring down, and of course the receiver doesn't flatten his route, he doesn't snap it off, he doesn't flatten it out, and now the safety gets an easy pick, this is just not a great use of personnel. It's not a great use of route combinations. It's not a great execution by the players on the field. Chase Claypool is just a bad route that he ran, and then Tua is just bad execution. He stared down the receiver and threw the ball into double coverage. So all in all, this is just a terrible, terrible play for the Dolphins to end their season. Well, it didn't end their season. I mean, they were able to play the following week in sub-freezing temperatures in Kansas City during a wild card game. But the fact of the matter is, for all intents and purposes, their season ended on that play, because I don't think anyone really gave the Dolphins a chance, as banged up and as injured they were on defense, to go into Kansas City to win a playoff game in sub-zero temperatures. So the Dolphins really have to do a better job of getting their personnel groupings in place to make sure that there's a threat on the field at all times. These kind of personnel package groupings, you don't want to see this in 2024. You'd like to see one of these guys, whether it's Odell Beckham Jr., Jaylen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Devon, Achane, Raheem Mostert, and Jaylen Wright, Jonnu Smith. You have to be able to get some guys on the field that can threaten the defense without there being a void of talent that the defense doesn't have to worry about. And any combination of those players on the field at the same time just helps the offense in its continuity and keeps plays like these from happening. So I would like to see the Dolphins be more proactive in rotating guys in and out and making sure that every time they line up for a play, they have someone on the field that can threaten the defense. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel in order to get the latest from the Matt Newton Football Show. And as usual, I'll see you in the next video.